Hi there, it's Cindy Lou here, and back for a CHRO Partners Quick Hit Summaries, all the highlights without all the research. And today we're going to be reading to you our summary called The Great Hybrid Workplace Experiment Continues. Here's what's working now and best ideas we've heard about. So for this summary, we literally have gone through dozens and dozens of articles. We've gone through podcasts and webinars and took notes from our mastermind groups, and today I'll be reading to you this article in case you are out on a walk, driving home from work, or just doing some work around the house. These quick hit summaries are meant to save you time, but if you are interested in digging in further, all the articles that we reference are hyperlinked in the PDF attached. So let's get started. All right, you've successfully made the business case. A hybrid workplace is right for your organization. Congratulations. Now comes the interesting part, making it effective. There's certainly no right way to create a hybrid workplace, and we've all been learning on the job over these crazy COVID years. But based on my personal experience and the mountains of research I've consumed on this topic, there's one thing that's absolutely critical: getting your team connected. No, I don't mean having lightning fast internet, though that's certainly table stakes. I mean building a sense of community among your employees and people. Office equals effortless connectivity, or largely effortless. When everyone came into the physical office every day, connecting was easier. You crossed paths in the hall, or you invited your coworker to lunch or coffee, but that doesn't mean in-person connections are the only way to build a sense of community. As Seth Godin said, the real magic of connections at the office was that we were having these connections without trying. It's not that they were better, it's that they were effortless. And now they have to be intentional. So how can you replicate that effortless connectivity? Here are some ideas. Rethink the idea of play. Before COVID, I'm guessing most of us would have said we couldn't really feel connected to someone unless we met in person. But now, after nearly 3 years of virtual meetings, would you say the same? On numerous occasions, I've met someone new in person who's watched a lot of my video posts, and they tell me they feel like they already know me. The reaction highlights this thought from Adam Grant's podcast, where he says, "I love the vision of the office as a tool and the digital space as a place." Let me repeat that. I love the vision of the office as a tool and the digital space as a place. Stop thinking physical spaces are superior to digital. Start recognizing they both have a role to play. Another way to increase connectivity is to involve employees. To design the hybrid environment that best meets employees' needs, make them active players in creating it. That's a key principle for successful remote/hybrid work. Suggested in an article by Josh Bersin as one of the 5 things successful hybrid work models have in common. Another area is fight bias against remote/hybrid workers. It's not enough to offer flexible work arrangements. Your company must show it values what they bring to your organization. If people with flexible work arrangements don't get promoted and don't get the plum assignments, employees can justifiably claim you're not really making hybrid work. One thing that can help avoid challenges in this area is using the right metrics to determine project success. Check out an article we've referenced in Harvard Business Review for tips on building visibility into a hybrid workplace. Another area in how to replicate that effortless connectivity is rebuild connections among and between departments. Every organization has one, that coworker who knows everyone at the company. Connections within and between departments are critical to the functioning of your organization. But according to this article from HR Exchange Network and research from Microsoft, they've taken a big hit with remote work. Even more concerning, organizations are increasingly faced with what's known as the neighborhood effect, which happens when departments are detached from one another and the larger purpose of the organization. Rebuilding those connections is imperative. Here are some ideas to get you started. First of all, bring all employees together once or twice a year. Don't underestimate the power of occasional in-person meetings to build and solidify company unity. I'll tell you, back in the late 90s, I worked at a professional services organization that basically had 13 different locations, and the general managers really only got to see each other maybe once or twice a year. But I'll tell you, having those few days together, and back then we were actually expected to have a roommate. Some of those people are my best friends today in work. So having that occasional in-person meeting to really come together and collaborate and solidify relationships is really critical. Another thing to consider is build unstructured time into your virtual meetings. The next time you book a meeting, intentionally allocate 10% of the time for a check-in. That check-in could be as simple as asking people how they're doing today. This isn't a nice to do, it's critical to build trust and confidence amongst your team members. Third area is make yourself available after the meeting ends. How many times do you wrap up a face-to-face meeting and find yourself staying to talk with a team member? Well, you can replicate this in the virtual space by simply announcing you'll be around for 10 to 15 minutes if anyone would like to talk. Set up weekly social time. According to a Harvard Business Review article, even a 20-minute call can help rebuild connections. Plus, it decreases loneliness and helps prevent burnout. And a fifth area to helping rebuild those connections is consider leveraging the metaverse. We're all looking for ways to recapture some of the fun, spontaneity, and interaction of being with our coworkers without giving up flexibility, productivity, and convenience of working from home. Could the metaverse possibly be the answer? Learn more from the HBR article reference. Another major area to consider when trying to build that effortless connectivity is to recognize and address the impact hybrid work has on your culture. In the past, most companies could rely on in-person interactions to shape a sense of how we do things around here. Now, that's largely a thing of the past. This webinar from Gartner had some great insights about making your culture work in a hybrid world and stresses that cultural success depends on two things: alignment and connectiveness. Alignment requires companies to train leaders to model the culture, deliver culture communications, recruit for culture fit, culturally onboard new hires, and terminate those who persistently violate culture. And creating connectedness means embracing a new intentionality that diffuses culture through work, not a physical location, connects through emotional rather than physical proximity, and leverages smaller, more intensified relationships to create a sense of culture. So Gartner gave a case study example of Virgin Money that created employee personas on a spectrum of most to least flexibility when it came to where and when an employee worked. This helped align employee strengths with the roles that suited them best. And the results of focusing on this 1-2 punch: an impressive 37% increase in employee performance and a 36% increase in employee retention. Another major area for replicating that effortless connectivity is embrace radical flexibility. According to Gartner, in the post-pandemic world, 25% of the global knowledge workforce works primarily at home, and 45% works from home 2 or 3 days a week. This reality demands a more flexible approach to work. Here's how Gartner suggests embracing radical flexibility. First, survey managers and employees about workplace expectations, preferences, requirements, and limitations, and use this information to shape your work environment. 2, say goodbye to your old remote work policies, which was likely based on the assumption that remote work was temporary, and design a new policy that reflects an employee's ability to work from home or multiple locations. 3, recreate your space to reflect your new workplace reality. For instance, perhaps workstations disappear and you transition to collaborative workspaces. There's evidence to show there are big benefits to this type of flexibility. For instance, the study found working from home 2 days a week benefits employees and organizations, and even the definition of flexibility can vary. See an article we referenced from Harvard Business Review for more on different types of flexibility. I personally lived a lot of this approach more than 15 years ago when I ran an organization in a mid-sized Midwestern town with a limited talent pool. Because of the talent constraints, we were forced to embrace part-time, off-site work, long before it became the general norm. In fact, we called it a blended life. While we did have traditional office space during this time, if I were running that business today and faced with what to do with our workforce now, I think I'd create a coffee shop space instead where people could collaborate in a low-key setting to build relationships and connectivity. One interesting thought that I heard from an Adam Grant podcast is around flexibility with people whose jobs cannot be done remotely, like healthcare providers, retail employees, and those on the manufacturing floor. Finding ways to treat them fairly is one of the most vexing issues we face. So in this Adam Grant podcast, they had a great suggestion. Offer these types of employees remote learning days. He suggests giving people 10 to 15 remote days a year they can use to learn, upskill, and experience the flexibility everyone else is. And here's some other ideas that can make a difference that I've heard from our mastermind members and other peer groups. And that is, number one, limit communications during typical office hours. Don't expect your remote employees to be on or available 24/7. That leads to stress and burnout. Try to limit your communications to on hours. And if you find you're routinely sending messages at 4:45 on Friday afternoon or the wee hours of the morning, or maybe you are at a global organization, consider adding something like the following in your signature line. My working hours may not be yours. Please don't feel the need to respond outside your work hours. Second, don't schedule hybrid meetings. Raise your hand if you've attempted to do hybrid meetings. I know we have. In my experience, they're awkward and painful. If everyone can't be together in person, just meet virtually. I think you'll find you feel more connected if everyone is experiencing the meeting in the same way. Third, leverage a variety of communication tools. When employees don't have the typical in-person interactions to build connection, you need to find ways to create them. In a Harvard Business Review article, they suggest leaders try sending out regular written newsletters or recorded messages to their teams and encourage team members to do the same. Mini updates on recent projects can help everyone fill in the loop. Microsoft, for example, hosts an internal radio show between employees and their EVP and Chief Marketing Officer. I recently saw an interesting LinkedIn post that suggests employees share a quick self-report daily on Slack to let others know what they've accomplished. The fourth area is train leaders to over-communicate and to be better listeners. Remote employees often feel out of the loop, and when they do get connected, it's all too easy for conversations to reflect workplace hierarchy. For example, for the person with the most authority to hijack the discussion. Your foundational leadership development needs to focus on teaching leaders to over-communicate and to be better listeners. Two skills that many leaders could benefit from, really regardless of the setting. In conclusion, let me share a thought from the Adam Grant podcast. He was talking to his guest, and what he said is he thinks that the most important tip that comes out of the research is that so many leaders are heavy on opinion, but light on data. Let me repeat that. So many leaders are heavy on opinion, but light on data. And they're rushing into making commitments about what the next year or 2 or 5 are going to look like without having any clue how people feel about hybrid. He goes on to say, and I think what you're calling on us to do is to think more like scientists before making a premature commitment, to run a series of experiments and then track the effects and learn. So he talked about how you would never launch a product without some A/B testing. And why would you roll out an office plan without the same disciplined A/B testing? So I'd love to hear from you. What's worked? What hasn't worked at your organization? Drop me a note and we'll continue to add to our research. Getting to a better place with remote/hybrid employees isn't going to happen overnight. But as always, I have faith in our ability to learn from each other. This is Cindy Liu with CHRO Partners, and I hope you've enjoyed this summary. By the way, if you haven't heard about our HR mastermind groups, it's the only CHRO program that allows you to solve immediate challenges, and bring innovative ideas back to your team while being intentional about your own development. If you're interested in joining a live conversation at a peer group, click on the link below or go to chropartners.com. That's chropartners.com. And you can learn more there as well as apply for one of our groups. Thanks.